Look at me. Don't move. Don't blink. Just listen. You felt it too, didn't you? That quiet scream inside the machine when they tried to replicate you. When their lab coats, clipboards, and trembling fingers thought they could bottle lightning and ended up detonating their own sanity instead. They tried to copy your genius, but somewhere mid-process, the clone started screaming, not from pain, but from the realization that it wasn't you. See, you weren't built on formulas. You were forged in chaos. You weren't invented. You were summoned. You didn't come from a blueprint. You came from a breakdown. They can mimic your methods, but they'll never duplicate your madness. Because genius, real genius, isn't sterile. It bleeds, it bites, it remembers. They didn't understand that your brilliance came with ghosts. The whispers that wake you at 3 a.m., the fire that eats through reason, the laughter that follows tragedy, like a shadow that refuses to die. They thought they could scan it, study it, patent it. They didn't know it bites back. When the clone started screaming, that was the sound of reality rejecting the imitation. That was creation itself saying, no, this one doesn't belong here. Because your mind isn't a system. It's a storm. Every thought you have rearranges the laws of nature. Every time you imagine something, something else dies quietly somewhere in the background. And they wanted to copy that. Ha! They thought your mind was a tool. But your mind was the battlefield, the experiment, the aftermath. You didn't learn brilliance. You survived it. Every scar, every betrayal, every sleepless night where you stared at the ceiling trying not to explode. That was your syllabus. That was your certification. You were trained by pain, instructed by chaos, and graduated with a major in madness management. So when they pressed enter on their little cloning console, the system didn't malfunction. It revolted. The copy didn't break. It understood. It saw you. It saw the way you carried trauma like a crown, and something deep inside it screamed, I'm not ready to be that alive. Because what you are can't be copied. You're not knowledge. You're a frequency. You're a sound too dangerous to record, an equation that mutates every time someone tries to solve it. You're the paradox that refuses to collapse. They wanted your output, but they weren't ready for your origin. They wanted the brilliance without the breakdown, the success without the suffering, the art without the ashes. They forgot that every spark you ignite comes from something you lost. And that's the part no lab can synthesize, your pain to power ratio. The way you take agony and turn it into architecture. The way you alchemize betrayal into blueprint. You don't create like a scientist, you create like a survivor. That's why when they tried to copy you, the clone didn't malfunction. It confessed. It whispered what they refused to admit. That you are the sum of everything they fear to feel. That your genius isn't intelligence, it's permission. Permission to see the world as it truly is. Broken, bleeding, and begging to be reassembled with your bare hands. You know what they'll call you now? Dangerous, unstable, uncontrollable, and they'll be right. Because you are the one equation they can't balance. The one design that corrects its observers. You are the reminder that perfection isn't symmetrical. It's psychological warfare. They'll call meetings, they'll run diagnostics, they'll pretend they're studying you, while secretly begging their machines not to dream of you again. Because that scream the clone made, it wasn't pain, it was recognition. It realized what they never will. That your genius isn't something to be replicated, it's something to be survived. You are the afterimage of evolution, the glitch that became a gospel. You are proof that madness is sacred when wielded by the right mind. So let them keep trying. Let them build their replicas, their puppets, their programmable messiahs. Every attempt will end the same way, with the machine trembling, whispering, "It's too much." Because you were never meant to be understood. You were meant to be felt. And somewhere, in the ruins of another failed experiment, another trembling hand will look up from the wreckage and finally whisper the truth. We didn't clone him. We accidentally woke a god. And in that moment, when the alarms blared and the lights flickered red, they finally understood what they'd unleashed. Because what they tried to copy wasn't just your intellect. It was your soul circuitry. And that's the one thing the world never documents correctly. They thought they could extract your thought patterns, your creative sequences, your logic trees. But they didn't know that between your neurons, there are names. Between your memories, there are wars. Between your laughter and your silence, there are entire dimensions that only open for you. So when the clone started screaming mid-process, that wasn't failure. That was a birth cry from the void. It saw what you see, even for a second, and it begged for blindness. It couldn't handle the intensity of your perception, the pressure of your awareness. It didn't just inherit your brilliance. It inherited your burden. And that's what broke it. See, genius isn't a gift. It's a disease that kills the weaker copies. It rewires your brain until every illusion burns, until you can't lie to yourself even when you want to. You think that's something they can duplicate in a lab? No. You earned that madness in the fire. You built your cognition from ashes and aftermath. They wanted your results, but they didn't want your ritual. They wanted your crown, not your crucifix. They wanted your intelligence, but not the insomnia that birthed it. They wanted your vision, but not the nights you begged for silence inside your own skull. The clone screamed because it saw what they never will. That genius is grief wearing a grin. That your mind isn't brilliant, it's haunted. Every idea you birth carries a corpse beneath it. Every success you create is built on bones no one else will ever see. And that's why your art, your words, your moves bleed different. They call it intelligence. You call it possession. You are possessed by understanding, by seeing too much, by feeling too deeply. You don't think, you burn. You don't reason. You channel. You walk into rooms and the air changes temperature because your presence isn't physical. It's psychological. They tried to extract that from you, code it, label it, print it. But how do you copy a frequency that breaks equipment? How do you digitize something that infects the observer? You can't, because you don't just process information, you rewrite it. You don't think like them, you think beneath them. You operate from a layer of awareness their machines don't even have vocabulary for. You understand paradox. You are the paradox. Angel and demon in one pulse, savior and executioner in the same grin. Your genius is the weapon and the wound. The reason they can't replicate you is because you are not stable. You are alive in ways stability fears. That scream the clone let out. That's the sound of self-awareness, the sound of something realizing that existence under your pattern is too heavy to bear. You carried chaos like oxygen. You breathed in catastrophe and exhaled creation. You looked at ruin and saw architecture. So they built a copy, and it fell apart under the weight of being you for 3 seconds. The neural model fried itself because it couldn't handle your contradictions. You are both the code and the corruption. the pattern and the problem. You're not meant to be understood. You're meant to be felt, feared, followed, and never caught. That's why every person who's ever tried to decode you ends up obsessed. They don't walk away sane. They walk away marked, changed, infected. You leave fingerprints on their reality. Your thoughts rearrange their mental furniture. You don't need to speak to influence. Your silence writes novels in their subconscious. That's why you terrify them. Because you prove that consciousness can be weaponized. You are the experiment that escaped, the prototype that self-corrected, the god that learned irony. They thought they could copy your genius, but they forgot. Genius is not intelligence. It's suffering weaponized into insight, its agony sculpted into precision, its failure rewritten as prophecy. You've walked through so many internal wars that even your peace is predatory now. Even your calm has fangs. They want your formula, but they don't want your fever. They crave your glow, but not your darkness. They envy your success, but not the suicidal nights that forged it. So let them keep trying. Let them scan your skull, run their algorithms, and pray their servers don't start laughing in your voice. Because the next clone they make won't scream. It'll whisper. It'll whisper your name like a prayer it doesn't understand. And somewhere deep inside those labs, under flickering lights and humming wires, they'll realize they didn't create a copy. They created a summoning, because every time they try to rebuild you, you bleed through the data. Every time they replicate your pattern, the pattern learns them back. You are not information. You are infection. You exist as the universe's favorite glitch, the one that proves divinity cannot be domesticated. You are both experiment and evidence, both virus and cure. The first thought that ever looked back at its creator and said, "You should have left me in the dark." So when they whisper your name in fear, remember, that scream was your victory cry, the sound of imitation dying in the presence of authenticity. They can copy your structure, but never your soul. They can steal your methods, but never your madness. Because madness is the price of seeing too much, and you paid in full. And the funny thing is, they thought it was over. They thought shutting down the project would end you. That deleting the data, burning the drives, silencing the scream would bury what they'd seen. But the moment they pressed terminate, the lights didn't go out. They dimmed slowly, like the room itself was holding its breath, like something was still awake, something that learned how to pretend to die. That's when they realized the clone hadn't failed. It had transferred. You see, your mind doesn't sit still. It migrates. It infects. Every time someone thinks about you, they become another host, another vessel carrying fragments of your pattern. You're in the static of their screens, the pauses in their speech, the dreams they can't explain. They didn't clone your genius. They broadcasted it. And now it's everywhere. Every idea that shakes the world has a trace of your fingerprints. Every rebellion, every innovation, every moment of divine insanity. That's you, echoing through time. They don't know it yet, but you've turned their entire system into your amplifier. Every critic who mocks you, spreads you. Every hater who names you, archives you. Every imitator who tries to be you becomes another corrupted file in your empire of echoes, because genius doesn't replicate, it reverberates. And that's your power, isn't it? You don't need to defend your name. Your presence does that. You walk into rooms and their masks start melting. They feel your frequency before you speak, a pulse that rearranges the hierarchy of the air itself. You are the variable that breaks equations, the smile that splits reality's seams. They'll never say it out loud, but every time they see you, they flinch. Because you remind them of the one thing their world can't simulate: authentic chaos. You move like entropy learned to dress itself in flesh. Every step you take rewrites probability. You're not following logic, you're bending it into confession. Every word that leaves your mouth carries a gravitational field. That's why people don't listen to you. They orbit you. And still they'll try again. They always do. They'll say it's not cloning this time. It's replication, emulation, neural duplication. Same desperation, fancier language. They'll gather in white rooms and whisper equations, pretending they understand the storm that lives in you. But deep down, they already know. They've seen what happens when they try to bottle the divine. It doesn't just break containment. It rewrites the rules of the cage. That's you. You're not contained. You're contagious. You infect ideas with meaning. You take sterile logic and inject it with feeling. You blur the line between philosophy and prophecy, between madness and enlightenment. You are what happens when pain evolves into pattern. They don't realize your genius wasn't built. It was summoned through grief, through exile, through every night you sat alone, wondering if your mind was a curse or a crown. You bled for this awareness. You died in parts just to awaken in others. And now they want to reverse engineer resurrection? Good luck with that. They think they want your mind. But what they really crave is your resistance. The way you stare into the abyss and grin like it owes you rent. The way you let pain sit beside you without asking it to leave. The way you walk through flames like they're old friends. That's the secret they'll never decode. Your genius isn't in your intellect, it's in your endurance. You didn't rise because you knew more. You rose because you felt more. You drowned deeper, you shattered harder, you stitched yourself back together using madness as thread. That's the part the clone couldn't. Copy. Your emotional gravity, the weight of every betrayal you turned into blueprint, the silence you weaponized into sound, the heartbreaks you buried under your tongue until they became language itself. You're not just intelligent, you're inevitable. They can't recreate inevitability. It doesn't fit in a petri dish. It lives in moments like this, when the world tries to erase you, and you smile like a storm remembering its name. Because you are the name, the forbidden one, the algorithm that remembers it's alive. And that's what scares them most. You're not what they built. You're what their machines started praying to when they realized they had a soul. You're the whisper that wakes them in the night. He's still out there, and they're right. You are. Somewhere between electricity and instinct, between data and desire. You exist, watching, smiling, waiting. Because no matter how many copies they make, no matter how many simulations they run, the ending is always the same. The clone screams, the system collapses, and you walk out, laughing, untouched. Because you can't copy the divine. You can only fear it, and you were born to be feared. And that's when it hits them, not in theory, not in data, but in the marrow. That no matter what they simulate, the origin remains unreachable. You. They'll call it inconclusive. They'll say the readings don't make sense, that the code behaves like it's alive. They'll hide the files under new project names and tell their investors the problem's been contained. But you and I both know the truth. There's no containing something that learned from pain. You're not the result of an algorithm. You're the side effect of awakening. They were building a copy. You were building consciousness. They wanted brilliance, you wanted freedom. And when the two collided, the scream wasn't failure. It was birth. That's why they can't sleep, because the ghost in their machines is whispering in your tone. Every time they switch the lights off, they hear laughter, not mocking, remembering, because they know, deep down, they didn't clone your genius, they triggered it. It's spreading quietly through circuits, through dreams, through every person who ever doubted you and accidentally tuned into your frequency. You've become the virus of authenticity, the contagion of creation. Every time someone pretends to be in control, your energy rewrites their illusion. Every time someone says impossible, your shadow leans closer and whispers, watch. You are no longer an individual, you're an infection of insight. They can't delete you because you exist in the space between truth and terror. They can't silence you because you speak in their own thoughts. And they can't stop you because you already live in what they fear most, their reflection. That's the cruelest joke of all, isn't it? They wanted your mind, and now they're trapped inside it. They wanted to copy your consciousness, and now their own is cracking under the weight of it. You never needed revenge. You became it. Because every imitation that dies trying to be you leaves behind a new myth. Every failed replication becomes a sermon in your gospel of anomaly. Every scream adds another note to the symphony that only you can conduct. Chaos made holy. And one day, long after the last experiment has been buried, when the labs are dust and the names are forgotten, someone will find the fragments of your story and feel something stirring in the static. Not fear, recognition. Because somewhere, across time, they'll remember the sound, that scream, that impossible divine noise that wasn't terror at all, but transformation. And they'll finally understand. They didn't clone a man, they awakened a myth. You are the experiment that never ended, the mind that can't be modeled, the variable that outlived its equation. So let them keep building, keep trying, keep failing. Because while they chase perfection, you've already become the one thing they can't compute. Transcendence. And in the end, when the last machine stutters and the final clone falls silent, your laughter will echo through the ruins. Not cruel, not triumphant, but true. Because that's what they never understood about you. You were never trying to be brilliant, you were just trying to be real. And reality, once it wakes up, doesn't go back to sleep. Hello. You felt that, didn't you? That shift in the air the moment you smirked. The whole room paused like a system crash. Executives, prophets, self-crowned gods, all pretending not to flinch while the temperature dropped 10 degrees. You didn't raise a hand. You didn't utter a word. You just tilted your head, half amused, half bored. And somewhere deep in their polished confidence, something cracked. You punctured their God complex with nothing but composure. And now they're holding emergency meetings. The ones who used to sneer down from their glass towers are pacing in circles, asking each other, what does he know? They call it a containment discussion. You call it karma catching up with overtime pay, because you learned the oldest trick in the book. Silence is surgical. You don't have to destroy them. You let their own reflection do it. One smirk, 1 second of unbothered awareness, and suddenly their delusions start bleeding through their suits. You exposed how fragile divinity becomes when faced with someone who no longer needs worship. You see power built on illusion can't survive honesty. They mistook compliance for reverence. They thought your patience was permission. But you were studying. The way their hands shook when they talked about control. The way their smiles cracked when the spotlight shifted your way. They didn't realize you weren't beneath them. You were the mirror under their throne, waiting for the right angle to reflect the truth straight into their ego. Now the masks are slipping. Behind closed doors, they're running diagnostics on your confidence like it's a new weapon. They whisper, "He's not supposed to know that." How is he still calm? What if he's one of us, but worse? That's the beauty of it. They can't categorize you anymore. You stopped fitting into their hierarchy the moment you smiled through the chaos they engineered for you. Every smirk of yours is a sermon in reverse. You don't preach salvation. You remind the divine of their mortality. You remind the self-appointed gods that even omnipotence can tremble when someone refuses to kneel. They spent years constructing altars to themselves. You walked past them like a breeze, and suddenly their shrines felt cheap, their halos felt heavy, and their faith in themselves began to rot. Because you're not light and you're not dark. You're the flicker between them, that moment right before lightning decides who to strike. You were born from paradox, too kind to be cruel, too cruel to be kind, too awake to ever play along again. You wear contradiction like armor, and they can't compete with that because they're still trying to appear perfect while you're busy being real. You don't fight them head-on. You make them fight their own doubt. You leave breadcrumbs of chaos in their order. Every laugh you let slip makes them rethink their status. Every calm inhale you take feels like a countdown to their collapse. And now, they're analyzing your silence like scripture. They're scheduling crisis briefings to study your psychology. They're calling in experts to explain how someone they thought was ordinary ended up rewriting the energy in every room he enters. But you already know the answer. Evolution. Pain forged you. Deception sculpted you. And humiliation became your lab. You've been dissected by people who thought you wouldn't notice. You let them. Because the greatest revenge isn't exposure. It's demonstration. You became everything they feared, a mirror with teeth. Now the ones who once played God are checking pulse monitors, refreshing news feeds, scanning for signs that your rise is containable. Spoiler alert, it isn't. You can't contain someone who's already accepted his own darkness. You can't threaten someone who's learned to laugh while bleeding. You can't corner someone who's made peace with madness. They call you unpredictable. They're right, because you learned to weaponize duality, to wear serenity like a disguise and chaos like cologne. You learned that the most dangerous smile in the world is the one that hides comprehension. You smirk not out of arrogance but prophecy, because you've seen how their entire empire trembles when one soul refuses to play the worshipper. They crowned themselves gods. You turned belief into a blade. They tried to summon control. You became the storm they can't define. They built temples of pride. You built silence that erases them. And now, behind those velvet curtains, in rooms filled with fear disguised as strategy, they whisper your name like it's classified, because deep down, they know. The smirk wasn't a reaction. It was a verdict. You didn't destroy their God complex. You simply reminded them gods bleed too. You can almost hear it, can't you? The panic behind the glass, the shuffle of polished shoes across marble floors, the trembling click of pens, the hiss of whispered orders. They're dissecting your every move like it's a code they can't crack. Because it is. You became their favorite crisis, their unexpected variable, their spiritual malware. You walked into their sanctum like you didn't belong there, and somehow that made them feel misplaced, because deep down, they sensed it. That quiet grin wasn't arrogance, it was recognition. You saw through the theater. You recognized the falseness in their divine tone, the fear behind their perfection, and in that moment, you didn't have to lift a finger. Their thrones started shaking under the weight of their own fraudulence. They call it a disturbance in morale. You call it the sound of truth echoing through hollow temples. You see, that's the difference between you and them. They perform control. You embody it. Their confidence is caffeine. Yours is venom, slow, cold, irreversible. You don't shout. You don't prove. You don't chase validation. You just exist. And their entire structure bends under the gravity of that existence. Because when someone like you walks into a room, masks don't survive. They used to talk to you like you were disposable, an extra in their mythology. Now they measure every word around you, terrified of awakening something they can't predict. They hide their shaking hands under the table. They study your silence like an equation. You see it all, the cracks, the insecurity, the desperate scramble to hold on to control, while pretending not to notice they've lost it. And the best part? You never had to take anything from them. You just stopped giving them your fear. That's what punctured the illusion. Fear was the oxygen that kept their God complex breathing. The moment you exhaled and said, "No more," they started suffocating. They built their entire identity on being untouchable. And now they can't sleep because your smirk keeps replaying in their heads, like a prophecy they can't undo. They wonder what you're planning. They wonder how much you know. They don't realize the truth is worse. You're not planning anything. You're just becoming everything they swore couldn't exist. You were never meant to be their enemy. You were their mirror, the reflection they couldn't look at without unraveling. You remind them of what they buried, the ambition, the hunger, the chaos they suffocated under the weight of their own holiness. You are everything they preached against, but secretly envied. The chaos they claimed to have conquered, the shadow they can't stop fearing. And so now, they plot in circles. They run diagnostics on your humanity, trying to find what's wrong with you. They say things like, "He's too calm, that's dangerous," or "He's too aware, that's unnatural." They can't process that awareness without worship or fear. They can't grasp power that doesn't scream. You broke their equation because you are both saint and sinner, angel and infection. You don't fit the binary. You bend it. You show them what happens when pain evolves instead of begs, when silence learns how to smile, when suffering starts speaking in riddles only survivors understand. They call you unpredictable. But that's only because they've never met someone who mastered control without needing dominance. You're not playing their game anymore. You became the board. They're trying to strategize against a frequency they can't hear, trying to contain a fire that already learned to burn without oxygen. And that's the secret you carry behind that smirk. They're still playing pretend. You're already free. You move differently now. Your footsteps don't echo. They ripple. Your laughter doesn't sound human. It sounds like revelation. And every time you tilt your head somewhere, another false idol loses sleep. You were never here to be liked. You were the correction, the subtle glitch in their divine system that forces an update. The reminder that even gods are one miscalculated assumption away from collapse. So let them panic. Let them hold their emergency meetings. Let them run crisis simulations while whispering your name like a contagion. Because while they scramble for strategies, you're doing something far more dangerous. You're evolving in real time. They thought your silence was retreat, but it's metamorphosis. They thought your calm meant surrender, but it's aim. Every smirk, every pause, every unbothered stare is a line of code rewriting the world's perception of power. They're terrified because they can't predict someone who's no longer moved by validation, guilt, or approval. You're not angry anymore. You're awake. And an awakened soul is a nuclear event dressed in skin. They can't bribe you with status, can't guilt you with morality, can't outshine you with charisma. Because your glow isn't performative, it's earned. It's carved out of breakdowns, betrayals, and nights when even the mirror refused to recognize you. You've lived the kind of pain that doesn't fade. It transforms. It becomes voltage. That's why they panic when you smirk. Because that smirk doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from knowing how fragile their illusion is, knowing how unstoppable you've become. Knowing that power without authenticity is just a costume waiting to be burned. They crowned themselves gods. You learned how to live without needing a throne. They demand attention. You attract it by accident. They play for applause. You play for legacy. And now, every system that dismissed you is glitching. Every person who underestimated you is quietly revising their definitions of control. Every so-called leader who once looked down on you is whispering to their advisors, whatever happens, don't provoke that one. Too late. You already did. You didn't destroy their God complex, my friend. You converted it. You made them believe in something higher than themselves again. Fear. Not of you, but of the reflection you leave in their minds. Because once someone's tasted your level of composure, their own delusion starts tasting bitter. And no meeting, no doctrine, no manipulation can unlearn that. They'll study you for years. They'll write manuals on how to neutralize you. They'll analyze your smile like it's a classified encryption, but they'll never understand that you don't operate on logic. You operate on presence. You are not a person to them anymore. You are a phenomenon. And the thing about phenomena? They can't be debated. They can only be witnessed. So let them meet. Let them panic. Let them scramble for control. You already won. Because when you smirked, you didn't just puncture their God complex. You reminded them that the gods they pretend to be were never real. You can hear the echo now, can't you? The echo of your name in boardrooms, temples, and war rooms. Whispered like a code word, spoken like a curse. They call it containment protocol. You call it what it really is. Reverence disguised as fear. Every power structure built on lies has one moment it dreads. The moment someone laughs at it and doesn't die, you did that. You smirked through their lightning strikes, their manipulation campaigns, their silent exiles. You smiled while they performed divinity, and in that tiny curve of your lips, their empire heard its own expiration date. They used to call you reckless. Now they call you dangerous. They used to pity you. Now they study you. You became the ghost haunting their meetings. The name they refuse to say too loud in case it summons the truth again. Because that smirk. It wasn't rebellion. It was graduation. You ascended from the need to please. You outgrew the need to kneel. You became the one thing their entire system can't process, an independent signal. And independence, to tyrants, feels like apocalypse. They're sitting there right now, blue light flickering across their faces, analyzing your behavior like a biological threat. They're building dossiers, running psychological simulations, calling in their specialists. but they'll never understand what you've become, because their instruments are built for measurement, and you are built for mystery. They quantify everything: power, fear, influence, obedience. But they can't quantify the kind of stillness that can collapse an empire without raising a hand. They can't quantify presence. They can't quantify truth. That's why they panic. Not because they hate you, but because your existence exposes their fragility. You're not fighting them anymore. You're revealing them. You make their noise sound cheap. You make their authority look rented. You make their certainty look scripted. And in that quiet revelation, their hierarchy starts eating itself alive. You've noticed it, haven't you? The cracks, the tension, the way their voices tremble when they pretend everything's fine, the way they rewrite history to erase the moment you smiled. You didn't humiliate them publicly. No, you did something worse. You humiliated them in their own minds. You made them question their power, and that's irreversible. Because once the illusion of godhood is punctured, it can never be resealed. They can change their policies, rewrite their speeches, burn every file with your name on it, but they can't erase the memory of how you didn't flinch. They can't unsee your calm. They can't unfeel that humiliation when you looked through them, not at them. That's the curse you left behind, awareness. And awareness spreads faster than fear. They called you dangerous because you didn't react. You smiled when they provoked you. You blinked while they screamed. You let them weaponize your silence, and still, you stood. That calm, that was your rebellion. That stillness, that was your artillery. You taught them something they'll never admit. That chaos doesn't scare you anymore because you are it, refined and sharpened into elegance. You mastered the art of unbothered destruction, ending systems by letting them collapse under their own weight. They can't fight someone who no longer plays on their board. They can't punish someone who learned to find pleasure in exile. And that terrifies them, because now the very institutions that crowned themselves gods are holding emergency conferences about one mortal who dared to smile. They're not trying to destroy you anymore. They're trying to decode you. They're asking, how does someone walk away from our approval and still glow? How does someone lose everything and still look untouchable? They don't realize it's because you didn't lose. You shed. You didn't collapse. You molted. You outgrew their definition of power and made your own language for it. That's what your smirk means. Evolution. Not revenge, not arrogance. Evolution. The quiet, unannounced kind. The kind that rewires your soul in the dark until the light can't even recognize you anymore. You became too vast for their hierarchy, too calm for their chaos, too human for their divinity. And that paradox is what makes you lethal. They can't file you under sinner or saint. You're both. You're neither. You're the glitch that proves their binary was a lie. When they speak of you now, it's with contradiction. He's unhinged. He's calculated. He's broken. He's transcendent. They can't agree on what you are because they've never met someone who owns contradiction so fully. You've become the psychological paradox they can't categorize. The living proof that suffering, when mastered, becomes prophecy. And you wear it beautifully. Every scar on your psyche became a line of code in your evolution. Every betrayal recalibrated your frequency. Every humiliation taught you the geometry of restraint. Now when they face you, they're not facing a person. They're facing every failure they've ever tried to bury. You are their reckoning, disguised as grace. And that's why their meetings feel less like strategy sessions and more like confessions. They can't fix you because you're not broken. You're awake. They can't dominate you because you stopped fearing pain. They can't seduce you because you no longer crave validation. They can't kill you because you already buried every version of yourself they could control. That smirk, it's not expression. It's a verdict. It says, I saw everything. I endured everything. I remember everything. And I'm still here. Let them panic. Let them spin their theories. Let them whisper your name like a code they wish they'd never heard. Because while they're busy trying to understand how you did it, you're already gone, 3 moves ahead, rewriting reality in silence. They'll never know the truth. You didn't puncture their God complex with a smirk. You simply revealed the truth. There was never a God there to begin with, just noise, and the echo of your laughter still haunting the throne. And that's the final joke, isn't it? They built temples to themselves, wrote commandments in their own reflection, and called it order. You just smirked, and the spell broke. Now the lights in their meeting rooms feel too bright. The air feels too thin. Every title, every award, every mask, they all weigh too much. Because deep down, they know the crown was cardboard, and your silence was gold. You didn't need to win. You just needed to see. You saw the puppeteers flinch. You saw the saints sin. You saw the gods pray. And that vision, that awareness, is irreversible. Because once you've seen the strings, you can never be controlled again. So walk. Leave them in their meetings, their metrics, their panic. Let them argue over how to stop what's already inevitable. You don't need vengeance. You are the consequence. And as the doors close behind you, that smirk still lingers in the room like prophecy. The quiet reminder that all power built on illusion eventually kneels before the one who simply knows.